Okay, so now we're going to source our own breakbeats, put them into Logic, chop them up, and start to resequence in a way that we desire. So, file, import audio file. I have some breakbeats here that I've sourced ahead of time. If you do a search on the internet, you can find a lot of sample packs consisting of breakbeats. Check out that website I suggested earlier as a good starting point. So, tempo, going to go with 170. That's kind of a safe tempo for me with regards to drum and bass. Not too fast, not too slow, but there's a lot of people also write at like 174. First thing we're going to do is determine how many bars this loop is, because obviously the original tempo is not 170. So let's have a listen. So it's a 2-bar loop which should finish here. So what we need to do is time stretch, compress that audio into the 2-bar loop. So if you hover to the right hand side of the audio region, click Alt, hold, drag, let go, and now we have compressed that into the 2-bar loop. Now Logic's algorithm is quite good in relation to that. This feature is also available on all other DAWs as well. So now we've maintained the pitch of the original audio loop. However, it's now in 170 beats per minute. Command left, right, up, down on the arrow keypad is our zoom shortcuts. So we're going to turn on flex time here, and I'll explain what this does, but we're going to initiate it on the audio track. Just going to name that Jungle Break 1, and we're going to turn flex on. Now what that does is it detects transients throughout the audio file and places markers for us to be able to adjust the audio to ensure it lines up with the grid or based on a particular quantize value. Now you can actually quantize audio, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to quantize that to 1/8, and that's kind of locked in. It's detected the beginning of where it thinks the transients are, and it's kind of locked them in to 1/8 notes. So let's have a listen. Yeah, so it's detected a wrong transient, or a transient's in the wrong place on that second half of the loop, so it's forced a transient beyond where it kind of should be. However, it's not a problem because that loop's the same for 2 bars. So we're going to work with the first bar of that loop. Okay, now we're going to ensure that those markers are in the right place before we chop the break up. So double click on the audio region, file. Okay, this here will initiate transient editing mode, so let's turn that on. And as you can see, the transient editing mode has detected transients throughout the file. So if we double click and we can play each slice. Alt, Command and arrows left and right will allow you to play each individual slice to ensure that it's been detected correctly. Ultimately what you're listening out for is any kind of transients that have been misdetected, so like double hits and stuff. But generally it's okay to keep it quite syncopated and not so tight, because we can also edit this when we transfer it to the EXS24 sampler. But I'm just going to show you how to ensure things are as they need to be. So we're going to zoom in here. Because that's not finished on the 0 crossing, that's going to cause maybe some pops and cracks. So but that's okay. At the end of an audio file, if it doesn't finish on this line, usually you're going to get some sort of click. So, but we can fix that as well, so that's not too much of a problem. So we're just going to skip through this audio. That one can be moved. See, it's trying to lock it to the 0 crossing line. So it has allowed us to put it there. However, that may cause some issues, but let's see. See, that one's quite far out. That's an interesting one. Let's pull that back there. That's out. Now, the more you chop breakbeats, the easier this will be. It's kind of, sometimes, it looks like, for example, there's 2 hits there. But when we play it, it's not a distinctive double hit, so we're going to leave it like that. Otherwise, when it comes to resequencing, it's going to cause us problems. So unless there's any real distinct double hits, just maintain as they are. Okay, and that's that, because we're going to use that first bar. So we've quantized the audio to ensure that it locks into the grid. We've edited the slicing to ensure that no slices have been missed out or anything has been misdetected. So now what we can do is, if we just click on the audio region, and we're going to convert to new sampler track. Now, we need to make sure it's on transient markers, so that will then slice the audio dependent on the markers that are in place that we edited just now. And I'm going to start it on the C3. Okay, so now we have that audio file in MIDI. So it's chopped it up and placed it inside the EXS24 on individual keys. So now we can resequence that. As you can hear, there are some kind of pops and clicks which we can fix, no problem. So let's just have a listen to the MIDI. Double click, have a look inside. Get rid of that because that's nothing. Slightly off. So what we're going to do is appellate actually to highlight all of the MIDI events, and then press Q to quantize. So it's quantized them and locked them further into the grid. However, some are running a bit short, so we'll extend them, or in fact, Apple A, that's an old school term. Back in, and now there's something going on here that I don't like. Now that can be fixed inside the editing page of the EXS24, but for now, as a quick fix, it's kind of using similar hits to what's going on in the first half of the loop. So if we use that snare, or actually if we get rid of that, we're going to take that snare over. Just turn the master down a bit because we're kind of getting close to the top there. Always ensure that everything's below 0 and you're leaving yourself enough headroom on the master. At pre-master stage, we want to make sure that we're floating at about -7, -10, but we'll go into that deeper when we get to the mixing stage. So we have a loop there that we can now manipulate and edit how we like it. If you're not happy with how tight or loose it may sound, if we can go into this editing page and we can further edit the hits to ensure they're tight. Now, when I work with digital, we sometimes exaggerate it and go right in. I know Steve likes to go right in and make sure things are really, really tight. Sometimes, however, you can lose feeling of the drums. Obviously, you can see a bit at the end there that kind of overlaps into the next transient. It's kind of using your discretion, really. Don't forget, drum and bass is kind of built on syncopated patterns, so an element of humanization is desired if you're trying to maintain that authentic jungle sound. So you can get a good balance of the old syncopated looseness and the fresh sound. So let's just make sure we're kind of happy with that. I mean, obviously back in the day, you couldn't even see the audio that you were editing. It was all done by ear, and a lot of the time it was quite loose and out. That's just some random spike there that it detected. So we're going to save that now, and now we have our first jungle loop. So we're going to go into kind of resequencing this. If we use the scissors, this is kind of a, I don't know if I want to call it a trick, but a tip for kind of resequencing your drums without having to go in and do it manually. And unless you're a drummer, until you understand the patterns that we're dealing with, you can kind of just rearrange this in kind of half bar sections. So that's the original loop there. What we can do is we can move this along. Click on the region, hold Alt until the plus sign appears, drag, release the mouse first, then let go of Alt, and that will copy your region over. Just gonna go for a classic pattern here, 2-bar pattern. Let's maintain, always keep a copy of the original loop. It's good practice so you don't kind of get lost, because you might want to return to that. Right, what we need to do is highlight those two there, T, and we're going to glue them together because we're going to go inside this now and edit the pattern, because what I'm trying to do is going to need some individual manipulation of the MIDI events. Going to extend that. That's in the wrong place. Put that back in there. And then you can see we've got room to edit and resequence and create some original patterns. So that's the first break. Now we're going to add another 2 sampled breakbeats, and then we're going to start layering with some fatter cleaner drum machine sounds to get the best of both worlds, the old and the new.